animating the reels on Toy Story.
So I just did a little introduction about it.
I heard that.
You heard that? You understood?
No, I did hear it.
Okay, so let's talk about animation. I mean, we have to do, I think.
World's greatest art form.
World's greatest art. Do you really think that animation is the world's greatest art form? Well, you do.
I do.
So
I do. I think it's the most, the one art form that continues to evolve technically and all different other avenues, and also incorporates the other art forms, music, you can even say dance, animation. I just think that's, I mean, it might sound a little weird to say it's the greatest art form in the world, but it does a great job of leading the way into new avenues of visual thinking and incorporating the other art forms. So, yeah, it's the greatest art form.
I often feel weird being asked to talk about animation because obviously I work in animation and I did for a very long time, but it was not what I set out to do. I went to traditional film school and I was working as an editor, as a film editor, and that's what brought me up to Pixar in the first place. It was as an editor on the first Toy Story. And anyway, long story short, 25 years later, I've been a part of a lot of great films and I've worked with some really great people in animation, but I feel like I've learned from them and hopefully they've learned from me. But I never feel comfortable talking about animation very deeply just because despite having worked in that medium so much, I don't consider myself an expert at all. Interesting.
But obviously you love it, right?
Yeah, I loved being there. I mean, there were a lot of reasons I loved it. Having worked in live action prior, I found the animation to be wonderful in that I rarely had to compromise. You know, when I was working in live action, like that world is full of compromises, which can be great. I mean, you're faced with challenges every day on the set, and you have to deal with things that aren't working out well, and you have to be on your toes and come up with, new ideas on the fly. And in animation, it's much, by necessity, it's much more methodical and drawn out for a long period of time. So, whatever I would dream up, I could get up on the screen, but then I can't point the finger at anybody else if anything goes wrong, right? I can't say, oh, well, it was raining that day, or he acted in the lines or whatever.
No,
it's like squarely on your shoulders.
Yeah. Well, I was actually a painter my first year at Cal Arts, and then I had the fortunate to hang out with Gary Trousdale and Chris Sanders and Bob Minkoff and Kirk Wise and Kelly Asbury. All these guys were at Cal Arts, and I was with all these morose painters. And Savage Steve Holland was there, right? And they all they were so much fun. The painters were so brooding. And they all convinced me to switch my majors.
I've heard so many Cal Arts stories over the years because
Joe Ramp was there.
I worked with Joe and John Lasseter and Andrew Stanton and King Doctor and Brett Bird and all these guys who went through Cal Arts. And I always felt like, what am I doing here? I really honestly was like the only one who wasn't in that club.
Yeah.
But again, I think it was valuable. I think I wasn't the huge Disney geek that a lot of them are, and I like Disney well enough.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I wasn't the only one. I mean, Andrew was really into all kinds of movies, and but I don't know. I feel like I balanced them out.
Yeah.
So,
well, I was in the experimental animation program under Jules Engel, who was an old UPA guy, and so I was in the character animation program. Mm-hmm. So I was trying to do some weirder stuff.
Yeah, weird stuff.
Yeah. But I just love I don't remember learning anything from my teachers per se. It was all those guys around me that that's what I learned.
That was the same for me at USC Film School.
Yeah, and it was a healthy competition.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody was.
Most of my teachers in film school were like guys who had directed like bad TV shows in the late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah.
You know, I was being taught cinematography by like the guy who was the cinematographer on Dynasty.
Right.
This isn't like high art. And they were all, you know, they were at the end of their careers and they were teaching. So we kind of felt like we had, like whatever we were going to get out of film school, we had to get out of ourselves.
That's the people that were around.
Just to keep the films you were making and the people you were hanging out with.
I think any real creative cauldron is like that. I mean, it's going to be the people that are wanting to get into it that are going to push each other.
But honestly, that's what Pixar was like in the early days. I mean, you know, if you knew how Toy Story was made, it was so held together with spit and rubber bands. Like,
I remember John and Joe had graduated a year or 2 years before me, but they would always come back. And I knew Joe really well. And I remember when they were getting ready to go up there and stuff, but it was top secret. We can't really come.
but again, like nobody knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
I mean, they knew enough to be able to like make it happen, obviously, but I mean, I can't believe it now, looking back at how crude all the systems were that we had in place to make that film. And I mean, I look at Andrew used to joke, Andrew Stanton used to joke all the time that while we were making Toy Story, he said, "This is the ugliest film we'll ever make." And he was right. I look at it now and it's pretty cringy. But you have to look at it in the context of the technology that we had at the time. And like none of that kind of matters because the story's so good, the characters are good, and you know, people love it. Yet, you know, for any of you here who saw it when it came out, it was so groundbreaking. Like nobody had ever seen anything like Toy Story.
Well, isn't there the famous story where the first pass at this screenplay was like rejected? And I wasn't there, so but this is what I've heard. Like, it's like this is crap. Like Woody was an asshole.
Oh, it was much worse than that. It wasn't the screenplay. They actually had the movie up on reels. It was all storyboarded.
And like
Story voices. Tom Hanks was recording dialogue where Woody was like a huge asshole, basically. Yeah. And it was because we were being pushed by the leadership at Disney at the time to make the movie more edgy. Like they kept saying, it needs to be more edgy. And so we had no choice but to do what they were asking. And so we kept going. When I say we, I wasn't with on the film then in those like early days, but they were, they were just making it really super sarcastic, and Woody was really pleasant and was like mean to all the other toys in the room.
Yeah, I've seen some of the reviews.
Yeah, it's like painful to watch. And then finally one day they were screening, and Disney was like, "Oh my God, what are we making here? This is so unpleasant. No, shut the whole thing down." And then we were pulled the plug on the whole movie.
And they gave him like a really short amount of time to try.
They weren't even given. Like John and those guys asked, like, "Please let us go away."
It was so ridiculous, right?
Let us go away and fix this. And to fix it, they basically went back to the roots of why they wanted to make the movie in the first place. And they just undid all the things that Disney had been asking them to do. And by Disney, I mean, you know, there were just some people running Disney at the time. They were giving these notes. And it was a success. Like it was those reels that got the film greenlit again. And it was right then that was when I joined the film.
Do you think sometimes when that kind of force is put on a creative problem, that it sort of squirts out in the right way just because of the factor?
All the time.
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, we were always trying to like create that feeling of being in the crucible.
Yeah.
Because always, anytime you're under pressure like that, like great things.
Well, this is very similar to the first, because I was there doing the Ride the Rabbit shorts and working with Gary and Kirk on the very first animat for Beauty and the Beast, and it was a disaster. And they had the same kind of problem.
Every Pixar movie was the biggest piece of crap at some point in the process. It's just true. It's true. And you just expect that that's going to be part of the process. You have to start somewhere. and then you look at it and say, okay, this is awful. How do we make it better?
Yeah.
And like step by step, you figure out how to make it better. And you start having moments or scenes or characters that land that you can then build upon to slowly make the movie better. And then you just have to hope that in the amount of time that you have, you can get it to that point where it's really working.
Yeah.
Because you're always against the clock.
But I do think that the clock is a helpful thing in a way. I think it's good when you're on the road and there's fire and you
I
have
know,
to
and
go.
again, we try to replicate that by having like shorter turnarounds for screenings, but everyone always knew that it wasn't really that situation. So I remember on Toy Story 2, people who follow Pixar history know that Toy Story 2 was heading to be a real big disaster, and we kind of pulled the plug on it, and after we finished A Bug's Life, a bunch of us that hadn't been involved got on board to try to figure out how to make it work. And we had a lot of great meetings. Joe was a part of that, and we finally figured out how to tell a really good story, but there just didn't seem to be the time, right? So I remember getting called into Steve Jobs' office because he wanted to kind of checking in with people about like what's going on, guys. And I said, I'm really excited about these changes to the story. We had this great idea of there being a second Buzz Lightyear, and it gets switched, and like on and on and on. We had all these ideas, but I said, I don't think we have time to like get it done on time. I think we're going to have to delay the release, change the release date. And Steve, I remember Steve just saying to me, yeah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't understand back then how many things had to be in place with promotional partnerships and toys, and all these commitments, like to market and release the film. And it's like, you don't just either change a release date. But I remember I kind of deflated, and he said, look, this is speaking as him, he said, when I look back on my career, all the things that I'm the most proud of were things that were made under conditions like this.
Yeah.
So we had to do it. I mean, we had no choice. We had to do it, and somehow something great came out of it.
So that's something to look forward to, kids. The pressure of having to get something to make a career.
It's real. I mean, that's why it's so hard as a student, because you're often just like, you can spin your wheels forever working on something and not quite finishing it, and it's great to really have hard deadlines. And not only hard deadlines, but to like expose yourself to criticism. Like,
Yeah, we used to call it, we have to murder a darling. Like when we were doing the Roger Rabbit shorts, it was all gags. And there was no script, we were just drawing this. And we had some great jokes, but if something didn't work with the story.
yeah, well, that'll happen. But again, like I really stress that like anyone making their own films or writing a screenplay or anything, like you have to let people see it and read it, and you have to not want them to just be nice. And say, oh, it's great, yeah, I love it. No, that's not helpful. You need to have people tell you what's wrong with it. They're not always going to be able to tell you how to fix it. That's your job. But they can at least tell you stuff's not working. Like it's too slow, or a character's not landing, or whatever.
For me personally, I always felt like I was more of an entertainer than an artist, because I like doing funny cartoons. So the audience to me was really important. So I didn't really have a problem with that. Like I was happy to write. What do you think about this?
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I just in my experience in the films we made, like it just to get from something that's good to get to something that's really great. You can't. I just feel you can't do it. I mean, maybe Miyazaki can do that. He can do that, but there aren't many people in the world that can do that in a vacuum. And so I just think it's critical to surround yourself with people that are going to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, you're making a movie. I mean, it's not just if you're doing a painting. It could be just making a movie.
Well, making a movie, you're spending,
also millions,
hundreds of millions of dollars of somebody else's money, and you have an obligation to do your best to have them make some money back. Investment.
Yeah, because that's pretty generous.
It's the truth when you're talking about movies this big.
Yeah, I think we have a very good introduction of I mean, you have mentioned the audience, the budget, the pressure of working teams. I think that we have a good introduction, and then maybe there's someone in the yes.
There's always
someone in the audience. There we have.
Tengo una pregunta para Lee, también para mí. A Lee, quería preguntarle su experiencia, las diferencias que hubo entre ser codirector y luego ser director en solitario en Toy Story 3. Después para Bill, nos comentará un poco su experiencia en Los Simpsons y hasta dónde estuvo ahí trabajando, hasta qué etapa de Los Simpsons estuvo. Gracias.
Okay, there's a question for each of you. The first one is for Lee. He's asking about your experience or the differences in your experience as a co-director and a director on your own in Toy Story 3. And then the question for Bill is about The Simpsons, you mentioned earlier on, and he wants to know how long did you stay with The Simpsons, until which phase? Okay, thank you.
The job of co-director, which I did on Toy Story 2 and Finding Nemo and Monsters Inc., was kind of a weird made-up thing. It's not really a job, but we made it up because it was kind of what I was doing. Basically, like I said, I came with a lot of live-action background to our films, and so what happened pretty early on was I started being in charge of all the editing of the films and all the staging, all the camera work. And those were kind of in my domain. And in addition, I helped out kind of whatever. I saw my job as being kind of Robin to the director's Batman. Like, I was there to help them achieve their vision. I wasn't putting forth my own vision. I was just doing everything I could to understand what the director wanted and help them make that. And be like another pair of hands for them, or like a really loyal deputy. When I was asked to direct Toy Story 3, it was kind of important to me to do that by myself. Like, I didn't want a co-director because I knew I could do all the parts of the job that I was already doing. I was confident in that. But there were a lot of aspects of the job that I didn't have as much experience in, like shepherding a whole film through production design, working with the art department. And I had worked with the actors a lot. But like the animators, I had, in a really concentrated way, worked with the animators day in and day out. So I just wanted to take on the challenge of doing that, which is what I did in Toy Story 3. It was terrifying. Like, there were so many things, even after, I had already been at Pixar for what? I joined in 96, 2006. Yeah, so I've been at Pixar for a decade already. And I still was like so mortified. I felt like an outsider still, even after 10 years at Pixar, especially with the animators. I was really nervous about working with them. But they always put me at ease and said, look, you don't need to understand the minutiae of what we do. You just need to be able to talk about performance and talk about character, and we'll figure out the rest. I don't need to understand how a walk cycle works, or like why a walk cycle is broken. I can just say that looks weird. It doesn't look right. It looks weightless, or that's not how that character would move. I can use that kind of language, which is honestly not that different than how I would talk to an actor on a live action set. So I spoke to the animators as actors, which is what they are, and we made it through. So it was a big step up and a big challenge, but I really, really loved kind of owning the whole movie on Toy Story 3 for sure.
I hope I remember the question.
I'm sorry.
No. Oh, yes.
I'm so sorry. I'm not in like translation mode. I started to talk so long.
Dejadme preguntar si realmente diréis que sí, la mayoría, bueno, algunos, es necesario la traducción, lo digo porque si tienen
Talking smaller,
but Google Translate records everything, so it puts it right into everything you say. It's fine. So okay, on The Simpsons, why did I leave so soon? That's probably the most frequent question I ever get asked. In the very beginning, it was Wes Archer and and myself and Matt Rainey. And it was on the Pierce Gilman show, the original short cartoon, the 30-second ones. And that proved to be too much work for two people to do, because we had to have finished animation each week. So originally, I think we were both responsible for 30 seconds, and that was almost impossible. So we brought David Silverman. What's that?
He was a good friend of mine.
Oh, he's good. Yeah, I love David. We're very close. Yeah. And so we worked every day really hard, and we all knew that it was just going to fail. Too, this was never going to go anywhere. No, we knew it was going to be a gigantic hit, a worldwide sensation. We absolutely knew that from the start. But the real answer is that I still felt like a student, and I had the opportunity. I took it. I was with him into the very first season when we got brought into a series, and but then I got an offer from Disney to go work on the White Rabbit shorts, and I always wanted to be in a story department, especially at Disney, with like Joe and my friends and Gary Trousdale. I mean, Disney was the place where you learned how to tell story, learn stories. So that's really why I left. I mean, I was 24 years old, so I still felt like a kid. And I had been, all the things I had done up to then had been sort of working on other people's ideas and having a lot of fun doing animation. But I felt like I really I knew that writing was the king of, like, if you can write and you can animate, I mean, that's like boom, boom, boom. You're a force to be reckoned with. If you're in command and you're on writing, and you're also able to draw what we're talking about, no one can stop you because you can do it all. So that's why I left, But I see it. Look at how the whole show went down the shithole. He's being sarcastic. I am being sarcastic. There you go.
Miguel,
he would like to thank you because Toy Story is the first memory he's got from a film ever. Toy Story 2 is the happiest memory he's got. And Toy Story 3 for him is a drama because of the end. Trauma.
Drama or trauma?
And he would like to know whether if Pixar now calls you to sort of create a Western with parts of Story 2 and Toy Story 3, would you accept?
Wait, what's the question?
The question was... Okay. Because they had the origins of the bus right now. Would you do the same with the origins of Buddy?
Oh, you're talking about Lightyear, the movie Lightyear.
Yeah.
Oh. Something like, yeah, I don't think that would happen. I don't think that's going to happen. Would I do it? Nah, probably not. I don't know. I was happy to make a sequel with Toy Story 3. I was really happy to, because we had been wanting to make it for a long time, and we couldn't because of our relationship with Disney at the time. So I was very honored to kind of, when I was making that film, I thought I was bringing the whole story to bear. That was the goal, that it would be the third and final film in that story. But beyond that, I don't know. I'm more interested in just telling original stories and like going back like that to tell that kind of story. I think it would be better for somebody else.
Lee, how important is artificial intelligence right now in Pixar company? And if it didn't exist, would you invent it?
He's asking about AI. I actually find AI really interesting. I think the jury is still out on how usable it is to tell a story. I don't think we're there yet with the technology, but where I do find it really interesting is in doing like concept work, and it's a great tool to get in the hands of a director who maybe can't draw, you know, who has ideas, who has like images in his head, but doesn't have a team of people to work with to get those ideas into some kind of realized form. That's where it seems helpful to me. Although I know some live action directors who have been dabbling with motion AI, and they're making some really cool stuff. I mean, it's completely surreal and not more experimental than anything. It's not. I don't think it's usable to tell a story, but I'm not one to just say, oh, it's never going to be used to make a movie, because I think it will be used to make a movie, whether we like it or not. And I think that there are ways for it to be used by artists to create things that we haven't ever seen before. And it's not to say that people couldn't create those things without the AI, but the AI can spark maybe ideas that never would have come to the table had it not been doing its own crazy imagining that it does. So, but no, in the time that I was at Pixar, we haven't used AI at all. It's pretty new. Although I have talked with my production designer in Coco, Harley Jessup. He's a fantastic production designer, and he was pretty down on AI initially, but I know he now sees how it can be helpful in the art department to help with idea iteration that ultimately real artists can run with and create something specifically, but it can be good just for, I don't know, like just idea generations, I guess, what I would say.
The magic 8 ball. But I agree, I think you're right, so it's a weird tool.
Yeah, I'm interested. I'm not trying to be a Luddite.
Yeah.
I know there are like all these horrible ways AI can be used, of course, for evil. But I think it can also be cool. And again, it's not going anywhere, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
It's her translation.
Yeah.
And I'm
sorry.
interested in your opinion, though. Yes, please. I'm interested in the, because now you are in the field of super independent animation. I mean, so in the field of very independent animation, maybe sometimes one army making the film. What do you think about artificial intelligence in this field?
What do I think about a one-man army?
No, I mean, if artificial intelligence can be a useful tool or not in that field,
Well, I think it's like Lee said, it's another tool in the arsenal.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's kind of weirdly random, so it would generate ideas that maybe nobody else would come across because it's kind of, in a way, kind of retarded. So we're just going to think weird. So, but I can remember when the computer animation and Photoshop and all that stuff came out, everybody was and I always felt like, well, it's just another way to incorporate, it's just another tool. Everybody was so scared, but it ended up being so good. With AI, I don't know, there are crazy ways, like you said, that it might go nuts. But I like the idea of a random idea generator thing, and I think that's kind of fun.
I know this whole topic is very controversial and polarizing. I guess all I'll say is right now, I feel like, I know there are lots of people out there who are angry about AI and feel like it's going to allow companies to replace artists, or people who feel that their work is being plagiarized. And these are all very real concerns that we didn't talk about. But at the same time that I hear all that, I'm also seeing artists, real artists, who are using AI tools to create really beautiful art. And I also want to see that kind of thing flourish at the same time that we continue to have important conversations and about guidelines being put up to make sure that the tools are being used appropriately.
The first one, well, first she wants to thank you both for coming to Sitges, to the film festival at Sitges. And the first question is, well, both of them are for Lee. The first question is whether after leaving Pixar, your ex-colleagues were asking your opinion on the new films they made, such on Word. If they were asking whether you liked them or not, whether you would add or eliminate anything. And the second question is a more personal one, because she's asking what's your favorite Pixar character and why is it the most favorite?
Favorite character?
Yeah.
The first question, I left Pixar about, I don't even know how long ago it was now, 3 years ago, I think, about. I still do some work for them, I still consult. I've helped out on some different films. I'm basically there if they want to call me. I'll come in and watch screenings and give notes and help out where I can. And that's happened on some of the movies, and others I haven't been involved with at all. Which is fine. I actually look forward to seeing the first Pixar film where I had nothing to do with it. Right? And that's going to start happening soon. Like even like Elemental, Peter was in the early stages of that when I was doing Pixar. So I'm looking forward to seeing the movie that I know nothing about. Because I always used to say that one of the worst things about working in Pixar is that I never got to see the new Pixar film. Like in the same way that everyone that the world did. I'll wait and translate that. I've been asked that question many times over the years, and whether it's about my favorite character or my favorite movie, and I used to always say that's like asking a parent to pick their favorite child. But I realize now that I've been a part of a lot of great movies at Pixar, but the only one that I really cooked up completely from nothingness into being a film was Coco. And so, if I'm going to be a parent of the character, Miguel is really that character that is the closest to me, and the character I'm most proud of because it feels like it's my child. And so, yeah, I'd have to say Miguel.
Dice que le han hecho esta pregunta.